if you were in Joel's shoes by the end, if you were in his shoes, what would you have done? Do you think The Last of Us is a video game, or do you think it's more of a playable cutscene?
I guess you can argue both sides. I consider it a video game.
Because this is my point.
Okay.
I do consider it a video game, but I do see why people don't like it. In the game, you would see either something on, like, it was like a picture or a note.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, he was gay. They're not related, but they're kind of brought together by chance. And you see from the beginning of the game when Joel really doesn't care about Ellie to the end when he's like, this is my daughter.
What is your favorite video game of all time? To the Gamers Enquirer podcast. All right.
And we're here.
We are here. Thank you everyone who has plugged into a previous podcast that I've had for Gamers Enquirer. This is another episode. Today, going to be talking about a lot. Have one of my good friends from college, Mr. Brian here, to tell us about himself, his gaming experiences, and we're going to dig a little deep into a few different games in particular that he and I have talked about offline that we really love, and hopefully you love them too, have played them also, and are open to giving us your thoughts and comments about the content today. The three games that we're going to be talking about are Resident Evil 4 Remake, The Last of Us, basically games and television show, the entire franchise. And we're also kind of have a little bit of a conversation about future games that Brian would like to play, I would like to play, and potentially you guys too. So we'll like to welcome Brian here. Brian, thanks for joining the show. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
This has been a long time coming, man. I feel like when we were kids back in college, mm-hmm. and we would have like all of these conversations about video games and movies, media, stuff, and all that stuff in particular. We always said to one another, like, man, it'd be cool if we just kind of had like an opportunity on a public stage to kind of share our thoughts and stuff like that. And like fast forward, 10 years and
more like almost 15.
Yeah, something like that, man. It's now we're here. Now we actually have microphones.
We made it. We have microphones. We made it.
We have microphones. We have cameras. Mm-hmm. We've got stuff. And, so thank you again for carving out the time and being here today.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah, that makes two of us. So tell us about yourself, Brian. Tell us kind of what were your video game stomping grounds, kind of how you started playing video games. Why don't you share with us a little bit about that? Maybe even start off with telling us some of the first games that you've ever played.
Sure. So one of my first memories in general is playing the Super Nintendo. So that was the first system that I was introduced to video games. I have two older brothers. We played Street Fighter 2. That was probably like our go-to.
Okay.
So games for me was like kind of a competition. Like that's like the first game I ever remember playing, and it's 2-player and you obviously fight each other. And I would constantly just get wrecked by my older brother because he was so good at it. And I was just, I was like 5. So I'm just pressing buttons.
Well, who was your go-to character on Street Fighter?
Probably Blanca.
Because
I just like, you could just tap one button and he would do his like electricity.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought the special moves were so cool.
Yeah.
And the artwork, and it just blew my mind. Like, it's one of my earliest memories in general.
I mean, it's Street Fighter. It's available. It was available when you went to Chuck E. Cheese and, mm-hmm. All these back when the mall had an arcade.
Yeah,
Street Fighter 2 was it. Mm-hmm. And, it was either Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat back in those days for fighting games. And, mm-hmm. The game was even more immortalized when they came out with like the movie, mm-hmm. and you had Jean-Claude Van Damme playing, I think his name was Guile or something. Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm. It was a great game. Yeah. I love that game.
Great movie.
So I only have one qualm about Street Fighter. Mm-hmm. They didn't have finishing moves in Street Fighter.
No.
If they would have thrown that into the mix, with their portfolio of characters, I think Street Fighter would have like gone into the stratosphere as like probably the greatest fighting game. But I think a lot of people would say Mortal Kombat now.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe.
Well, Street Fighter, what is it, 6 now? It just came out pretty recently.
Yeah.
And Mortal Kombat 1 remake. It's called Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
But it's a remake of the whole series. I mean, the fact that those two series are still going is pretty surprising to me.
So you started off playing Street Fighter, which a lot of people don't start off playing like a fighting game for their first game. That definitely wasn't my experience. What other games did you play growing up?
Yeah, we had Mario. We had like Super Mario World for the SNES, and then we also had this game called Run Saber. I don't know if you know what it is.
I have no idea what that is.
For those out there who do know what it is, it's like a side scroller, like beat 'em up.
Okay.
Except you get like lightsabers. They're not called that, but they look pretty much like it. And you just go through levels and beat up bad guys until it's over. But the music is really good, and the specials, you get like a special move. Those look really cool too.
Could you play them with like a family member or a friend?
Yeah, it was a 2-player game. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't Star Wars. It was like
it was its own thing.
Its own, not even its own version of Star Wars.
Like, I really want to know, like, the story behind it. I don't know anything about it. To me, it's like a deep cut. I don't know too many
What's
people.
the title of the game again?
It's called Run Saber.
Okay, I might have the editing team put like the thumbnail of the game cover on the video. I don't know, but I'm immediately interested in this game.
We need to plug the Run Saber.
There's a lot of there's a lot of games for the Super Nintendo that was really popular at the time that just didn't keep the traction over future years. There was this game based on a television show. Like you remember you remember Power Rangers, right?
Yeah.
Well, they had like a knockoff version of Power Rangers that they put into a game called VR Troopers.
Yes, that was a TV show.
Yeah.
I loved that when I was a kid.
That was a freaking awesome video game.
It was made by the same company too, Saban.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Saban Entertainment, which they would just take, because like Power Rangers and VR Troopers, I think those were just Japanese shows.
Okay.
That they incorporated an American plot to.
Okay.
Like all the footage of those people fighting, they would intersplice with the footage they would shoot in America of like the kids out of the suits and stuff. But
that's pretty cool.
It's all the same company.
Yeah. I wish that, and I know we're kind of graduating the conversation, but the most recent iteration of Power Rangers movie that came out, I think in 2017. Did you get to see that at all?
I did see it.
I did see it as well.
Yeah.
I applaud their attempt.
That's what it was.
But because the costumes are really good.
Yeah, I thought the costumes were cool.
They were pretty amazing.
I don't remember anything about the movie except that most of the movie takes place at a Krispy Kreme. And I just remember thinking like,
I'm hungry.
Well, not just that, but like, when's the last time you heard Krispy Kreme?
Right.
And like the big cultural zeitgeist. Just, yeah, let's all, like they would say like, they would look right in the camera. We're going to meet at Krispy Kreme. And then a check would fly down.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think the story could have been a little bit darker, but I guess I feel that way about a lot of shows.
Yeah.
But I hope Saban or whoever is the holder of the franchise creates another movie, because I mean, a universe where Power Rangers is doing well is a universe I like to be in.
Yeah.
So anyway, you started off playing Super Nintendo. You were never a Sega guy?
No, because we only had like one system.
Yeah.
We were never, it was like just pick one and then ride with it until you're done with it.
Yeah.
So we were like pretty big Nintendo fans.
Yeah.
Because after the Super Nintendo, we got a Nintendo 64, which I still have. And then we got a GameCube. And so we rocked with Nintendo pretty much.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I shared on a previous show that like my brother and myself were kind of like sport. I think your situation is like most, people where the household had one game console.
Yep.
And that's what everybody played.
Yep.
And, but I grew up, my parents got me a Super Nintendo. They got my brother a Sega.
Wow.
And I know, right? It was just like next level. And we had 2 controllers for each one. So we could both play, basically all the games that were out at the time.
For you young whippersnappers out there.
Yeah.
That's what it was like back in like my reaction is what I think most people would have for those days, because you just never heard of, well, you have a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I'm coming over to your house. Matter of fact, I'm going to steal your consoles when you're not looking.
Did you guys have like a ton of sleepovers where
Oh, yeah.
kids would come over?
Our house was that house on the block.
Yeah.
Where everybody came over to game, have fun. And, trash talking was a different level back then. Nowadays you can hide behind your anonymity. But when you get beaten by someone and you have to look them in the eye and admit, you're better than me, like it cuts way different.
Yeah, so, the salt that my brothers and I had for each other after playing Street Fighter was real.
Yeah,
because we would get into like real fights after
absolutely,
playing, and then my parents would take the game and put it on top of the refrigerator to like ground us because Street Fighter was leading to like real fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing the moves as well, the Hadouken.
Oh yeah,
and all of that stuff. That I was literally doing that. I would do that. I would do that like in the shower, or trying to do the Hadouken, or the playground or whatever, trying to do that little Hadouken. It was amazing. Those are good times.
Those were the days.
So what would you say now? You went from Super Nintendo, GameCube, Nintendo 64. Was there a gap in your gameplay between, I guess, high school to college or college to now? Have you been just gaming the entire time?
Pretty much the whole time, yeah.
Okay, so what other consoles have you had?
So after the GameCube, my friend who lived like a block away, he had a PlayStation 2, and we would go over and play Star Wars Battlefront, and I thought that game was so good that I was like, I'd forget this GameCube. I need a PlayStation just specifically to play Star Wars Battlefront.
Was Star Wars Battlefront only exclusive to PlayStation at the time, or was it
PlayStation and Xbox? They didn't have a GameCube port.
I see. Okay. And what was it about the Battlefront game? Was it I've only played Star Wars Battlefront 2. Mm-hmm. I had never played the first one. Mm-hmm. Was there like a campaign for it? Okay, so did the campaign captivate you, or was it the matchmaking?
It was a 2-player.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had to go through the campaign with 2 people, or
no? You could do. I forget what they called it, but you could do what you did in the campaign playing single player. Okay. But just with 2 people.
It was a split screen.
Yeah, it was split screen. So how it worked was you would like map out how you wanted your side to conquer the galaxy. Okay. And then you could be you could play in both at that time, both eras, which was the Clone Wars and then the original trilogy. Okay. So you could either be the Rebels or the Empire, and then for the Clone Wars, you could either be the Clone Troopers or the attack droids.
Were you an Empire guy, or?
Oh, we did all.
Oh, you did. Of them. So you played it to completion, basically.
Pretty much. I played it a lot.
It was all you played.
Yeah, because my friend and I, what we liked the most about it was that it was just. I had never seen to that point a game with so much enemies to destroy, and like you would have to really like team up with your buddy, whoever you're playing with, to like make sure that you're going to the right areas, because wherever you go, the troops follow you. Okay. So you can't just mess around. Okay. You have to like kind of be a little strategic.
It's kind of like an organized chaos approach to it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And then I just like being able to also, you could like control the ships. Like you could jump in a ship and then like shoot troopers as you're flying by, or shoot the other person in the other ship. So I just thought that was so cool. So I was like, I don't need this GameCube.
No, that's good. That's good. And so you ended up getting the PlayStation.
And then I got a PS3 when I got a Xbox 360 when I turned 16. I bought it with my own money, which I thought was so cool.
That's huge.
Yeah.
When you're in high school and you buy anything,
my first job.
Yeah, you buy anything with your own money in high school. Like it means something.
So then I got into online gaming, which I did a little bit because I played a lot of StarCraft, which you could play online.
Okay.
But then when I got the 360, I got Halo 3, and that just completely changed
That was
everything.
it.
Yeah, it changed my life, everything. Because I knew what Halo was, but I never had an Xbox.
Yeah.
So I would just play it at friends' houses. But when I got my 360 and then Halo 3, it was just that took over my life.
Yeah.
For like a year.
Yeah, yeah. That a lot of people, when they get any of the first, either Halo 1, Halo 2, or Halo 3, if they get any of those games, they immediately go into hiding for at least a year.
Yeah.
Just because you have to do that in order to appreciate the game. Like,
Yep.
Halo. I was a Halo 1 guy.
Yeah.
And so I like to say that, like, I knew about the Halo bug before, because Halo 2 is when it really blew up. It got out of control with Halo 2.
I remember being in junior high and like all my friends would go to the midnight release or went to the midnight release to get it.
And you just didn't understand, why are you
like
staying up and
because I knew Halo was a big thing, but I didn't realize how passionate the fan base was.
Oh my God.
So when Halo 2 dropped, I was like in 8th grade, and like that's every kid was talking about it.
It was a religion, dude.
Yeah.
The lore was the lore was a religion.
Yeah.
It was not a game. There was no game like it before. And, and I've said before, Halo 1 was one of the first games that you could link consoles together with. Other games, you couldn't just link, one console with another console, with another console, with another console. You end up having 16 people together, matchmaking. That's never the most you could ever do before with 007 GoldenEye with Nintendo 64 or something. It's like 4 players and you're split screen. You're playing on like a 17-inch TV, and it's cut into 4 squares.
Now, I know that because folks out there will probably know this, but Doom, when it was on the
computer
PC,
game,
you could play that online too.
Back in the 90s.
It was really obviously it couldn't get that technical, but people would mod the game and they would play online.
The same server that way. Do you know what the capacity was for Doom? Okay,
but it was Doom and Quake were the first. I don't know if they were the first, but they really kind of got it going, online first person shooter. But I know Halo was the first to really take it mainstream for a console.
Yeah, for a console.
Yeah, those were the other Quake and Doom were for PC.
See, I was too elementary in my gaming approach growing up, where I only got to experience. I was only open to experiencing video games through a console, and so having that PC experience on a console, playing with a bunch of my friends, linked that way was just. And Halo did that.
Yeah, and Halo was good.
It had an amazing campaign. The matchmaking was obnoxiously balanced. And again, linking with 16 of your friends, I was telling people, my basement ended up being like an arcade growing up, in junior high, playing Halo 1.
Yeah.
So, so you played 360. And then you ended up, after getting the 360, moving on to playing PS3.
Right. It's the first time I played The Last of Us was on PS3.
Oh, yeah. So you're one of the original.
It was a year late.
Players. Oh, were you?
Yeah. Because I got it in 2014.
Did you get did you go to GameStop once it was on sale? Or did you just held off on getting the game?
Well, what happened was my 360 died. I got the Red Rings of Death.
Oh my God, that deserves its own show.
And it was right before I graduated. And then I got a PS2 again, and I was just kind of messing around. And then when I got my first big job and I had money to spend, I was like, yeah, I'll just get a PS3 because what I like is I like kind of waiting for a game console's kind of run like lifetime, waiting toward the end when it starts to get cheaper. And then I'll get everything when it's cheap. And then I'll kind of play through what I missed. So I played through The Last of Us because I knew that it was a big deal. And I wanted to see what it was like. And then there were some other PS3 games that I was just curious about trying that I never got a chance to because I had a 360. And then after the PS3, I got a PS4, and I've been with that ever since.
Okay. Yeah, it's The Last of Us. What was your initial reaction to playing that game? I know we're gonna have like another section where we kind of go in on it, but just as like a preface to that conversation, you got it in 2014 or so on the PS3. Was it what you thought it was going to be, or did you have a different experience?
Yeah, I was blown away, like, because I'd heard it how good it was, but I didn't know like what that meant.
Yeah.
So when I played it, I was blown away at the graphics and the fact that it played out like a drama, like it played out like a TV miniseries. Like I felt like I was watching a show.
Yeah.
That I could like interact with, and I thought the story was compelling, and I thought the ending was incredible. So that was my first reaction to it.
Hey guys, it's Terry here. Hope you're enjoying the content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get regular updates on new videos. Thanks. Let's get back to the show.
Last of Us. It wasn't what you quite thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
When you bought it, you thought it was just going to be just another game, another one-player game produced by some random Naughty Dog team.
Yeah.
I still don't know completely what a Naughty Dog is.
I just knew that they did the
Just Cause, or no, not Just Cause, but
the treasure hunting one.
Yeah, I'd never played that game.
No, I tried.
They had like 5 installments.
I just think it's kind of boring. I had no expectations of The Last of Us. I didn't know what the plot was. I didn't know. I didn't read any spoilers. I walked in almost completely blind. It definitely surprised me.
It was an original game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been zombie games in the past, right? But none of them kind of necessarily in an apocalyptic future where society has basically collapsed and mankind is also in and of itself its own enemy. And it's less unified than what we have right now. Every man out for himself. And oh, by the way, there's infections in the form of what appears to be a similar version to a zombie. So
yeah.
But the story, more than just the zombie enemy, is really what captivated me, captivated many people. I was late. I was even later than you. You were a year removed from the original release of the 2013 Last of Us 1. I knew about it the whole time. I've obviously am a big gamer, and I knew of the wave, but I didn't have a PlayStation. I was kind of the opposite of you. I had an Xbox the whole time. And I was thinking, well, this is, I knew about the game's release and I was like, oh, this looks cool, but I think it's going to be like more of like the flavor of the month sort of game.
Yeah.
And it'll just kind of blow over after, a few months, maybe even a year. It won't be anything to, put on your mantle as one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah.
Which it ended up being. I was invited to The Last of Us, almost 10 years later when they came out with The Last of Us Remake.
Yeah.
This past September of 2022. And I played that on the PS5.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you were late.
I was extremely late. But I played it on a remade version, the graphics better, the voice acting better, the cinematography better, from end to end. a complete game, and I immediately, off of the first opening act, was just hooked to this game.
Well, that first act is really whether or not you're going to play the game.
Yeah.
Because I think what set The Last of Us apart from other zombie games or zombie stories was they had the gall to kill one of the main characters right at the beginning. And I think that whether or not that really tugged at your heartstrings would determine whether or not you were going to play the game and enjoy it.
Yeah. It was definitely its own original recipe for getting the player, the audience entranced in what was going to be experienced for them. And I thought that even the score for the game, the music for the game, it directly matched what the culture of the game was. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be this uplifting, feel good sort of thing, but it had its, country sort of undertoned, downridden sort of vibe to it that just, again, matched the game in a way that you just had to keep playing.
Yeah.
And personally, I kind of felt like because of all of that being into the game's cocktail caught fire, because there's a lot of gamers that, and just people in general, that they don't necessarily have these amazing, perfect lives.
Right.
And to witness, Joel and, Ellie and, all these other characters that, are dealing with just a crappy situation.
Right.
They could relate in some weird way to the show, or not just to the show, but to the game. And so that's why they kept playing. That's why they, were interested in it. So,
well, and people cared to see what happened with Joel and Ellie's relationship. Like, that's what I think they really nailed was, they're not related, but they're kind of brought together by chance. And you see from the beginning of the game when Joel really doesn't care about Ellie to the end when he's like, this is my daughter.
Yeah.
And what I think the game did so well of doing was showing how he evolved from the beginning when his daughter got killed to the end when you started to realize that Ellie has kind of become his replacement daughter. Like he sees his own daughter in Ellie.
Yeah.
And then, spoilers, ultimately that's why he couldn't have her die from this surgery that could have cured the world of this zombie virus. And then when I watched the show, I think the show actually makes you understand his perspective even more.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember if the game was as ambiguous as the show was, but they said, well, maybe it might be a cure. They were just kind of hoping it would be.
Right.
And I could understand, like, I could put myself in Joel's perspective and say, is it worth risking losing somebody you love for something that might not even work?
Yeah.
And in the moment, like where the whole kind of game kind of comes to a head in the hospital where Joel confronts the doctor about to perform the surgery, if you have like 5 seconds to make a decision over whether or not this girl who's basically become your surrogate daughter, whether or not she's going to die, any parent, they're going to pick their kid over anything else.
It was huge, man.
Yeah.
Because when I finished the game, and we probably should have plugged that this spoiler is going to be all over this conversation, but do I really care?
It's like a 10-year-old game.
The game has been out for like 12 years. So if you haven't played the game by now, I mean, I don't care. So yes, I felt after playing the game, and I had a conversation with a handful of friends, not just you, many of whom were not parents, were saying, oh, Joel is so selfish. How could he, not sacrifice this girl for the good of mankind? Being a dad myself, man, that's not an easy. I would have taken much more time to think about this. I would have at the very least considered all of my other courses of action. I mean, killing the child couldn't have been the only option.
Right.
It may have been the quickest one. But I don't think it could have been. But that's not the way the story went. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I was able to empathize with Joel on a different level because I'm a dad, you know?
Yeah.
Versus much of the community that were on the other side of that fence. Many of them, you know, they didn't have children of their own. So
Right.
it's easy to say, oh, just fork over the girl
Right.
and save the world.
Right. Well, I think it goes beyond just whether or not you're a parent. The question is, would you sacrifice somebody you love to save the world?
Right.
I think the game and the movie and the TV show both gave you enough about Joel and Ellie's relationship to really make you think about it too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody can make a snap decision one way or another without thinking about it.
Yeah.
But in the game, he didn't really have time to. And same with the TV show. It was like, as soon as he walked into that doctor's office, he like popped him. He was just like not taking any chances. Well,
The entire first episode, the first Last of Us 1 and the TV show, it was basically divided into three main kind of sections, I would say. You know, obviously you had the beginnings and the initial, you know, contact with, you know, Joel's initial contact with Ellie and them starting off the journey. And then, you know, you've got, I'm forgetting all of the names of all of the main characters, but Joel and Ellie, when they first encounter, you know, the guy and, you know, his husband, boyfriend person at the house in that town. Well, in the show, they made it a homosexual relationship, but in the game, it wasn't necessarily that clear.
If you looked around the house in the game, you would see either something on, like, it was like a picture or a note.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, he was gay.
So there was some, that was
the extent of it.
That was the only indication. But it was just two guys that lived in the same town, but they weren't under the same roof at that time. But in the show, they actually had that relationship. They did their thing, and
I actually loved what they did in the show.
Yeah, it was well acted.
Like, however you feel about it, love is love, right?
Yeah.
And in this post-apocalyptic world, you know, there's probably people kind of put aside their political ideas, and they're just people.
Yeah.
And I think that's why The Last of Us is so compelling, is because the apocalypse, the zombie takeover stripped away everything that made people human. And then people were kind of forced to reset, and they became kind of more like survivalists.
Yeah.
And in the show, at first I was kind of confused as to why, because I was like really looking forward to Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
Playing that role. And Bill, that's his name.
Yeah, Bill. That's right.
I was really looking forward to it because I like him as an actor.
He's phenomenal.
But that episode, I was like, this is one of the most compelling things I've ever seen on television.
Yeah.
Because the relationship between him and I can't remember the guy's name that he falls in love with.
Yeah.
But it is so realistic, and just the way that you see their relationship progress. I'm like, this is like the most touching thing I've ever seen for a video game, like for a show about a video game. I'm like, this is huge.
Yeah. And you hit it right on the head. If you can, you know, maybe close your eyes and imagine being in that world, where it's easier to kill and to just, you know, be on your own, and forget about, you know, what makes you a human being and having, you know, relationships. More important in that sort of universe than even reproducing,
Right,
is having a friend.
Right.
And the friend could be in the form of a male or a female, but the relationship is what's valued the most. And that was highlighted in the show really well, like you said.
Just thinking about it, I'm like kind of getting emotional because it's such a, like by the end, like I was definitely crying at the end because it's so touching. It's like at the end, you're like, I feel what he feels for this guy that he fell in love with, and they were together. And when they die, it's so like poetic, and in the end, it still followed the game's logic, where the game was like, Bill is here to help you find a car.
Yeah.
In the end, it still did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember thinking like, okay, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect adaptation of the game, but it was so compelling.
Yeah. The show illustrated basically a lifetime together with someone.
Yeah.
In one episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was one section of the game show, of the game/show. And then the other section was when they went into the big city. I think it was Kansas City, and they encountered the brothers.
Yeah, the two brothers.
Yeah, the two brothers trying to escape that big city along with them. That was a crazy moment as well.
Yeah.
What was sort of your initial reactions to that dynamic? Obviously, the main difference between the game and the show being how the little brother's ability to communicate was handicapped in the show versus in the game.
Yeah, was he deaf in the game?
No,
I can't remember.
I don't think so.
No, I think they made that for the show.
In the show, he was deaf, and they used sign language to communicate. But that entire sort of moment, how did that impact you?
Well, I knew it was coming because I played the game. So I think it didn't really have as much of an impact on me as it did other people who watching the show who didn't know what was coming. Because I remember seeing the reaction on Twitter. Everybody was just like the Bill episode. Everybody got really emotional.
Yeah.
But I knew what was coming. So to me, it was just like once you get used to the whole tragedy of the world post the virus, then you start to kind of the game and the show get you to kind of make you feel a little callous toward all this violence and death, like how the characters are feeling about it, because they've seen so much doesn't mean that much. And then same in the story, you start to feel a little callous as it goes on, because human life isn't really.
What side of the fence did you feel like you were on when you found out that the older brother basically sacrificed one of the community leaders? I think the community physician. It kind of gave up his location and had him killed in order to trade for the life of his younger brother. And they ended up being basically, enemies of that environment and trying to escape. Were you thinking he was justified in that act, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean the game has you question what's right and wrong,
right,
in every moment. And at some points you're siding with the good of all sort of approach, and then other moments you're like, no, I would do the selfish thing and save my loved one.
Right. I think everybody would.
Yeah.
Because in the moment, if you see a family member could die, your instinct is going to kick in to try to save them. You're not thinking about, well, what about this relationship, or how this could affect that? I mean, I think instincts tell you to protect.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But then if you were in Joel's shoes by the end, if you were in his shoes, what would you have done?
No, I'm asking the questions here. I'm not supposed to be the one answering all of the controversial questions. That's the benefit of hosting the show.
Well,
is not being the controversial one to answer.
Yeah. And I don't want you to imagine like your own kids.
No,
I'm saying,
no.
like if you
but
were
you can't
Joel.
help to. You have to. No.
Yeah.
No, but that's me, man.
You would have done what Joel did?
I probably would have done with what Joel did. I would have had so many other parameters. Like I would have not want to know what was going to happen.
Right.
Joel had his demands. I would have much rather not known it happened and then me just be pissed in the aftermath or, something. But if I'm knowing what's going on, yeah, I'm probably going to try and save my son.
Yeah.
In some way. Like I have to try. Yeah, dude, I'm not built to do that.
Well, that's why I like The Last of Us, because it's very much a morality tale.
Yeah.
And it's very much like I was saying earlier, you strip away everything from us that makes us human.
Yeah.
And what is left behind? Like what is The Last of Us? What does it all mean? And it's funny that people, when they talk about that decision, they often think about it in terms of the world we live in now. But you have to put yourself in those people's shoes. Like, if the world was really over as we knew it, right? If most of the population was wiped out by a virus, like, you start to devalue life a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because people die left and right.
I mean, there were all over the game was indications of people, taking their own lives because they didn't want to deal with that sort of world to be in. And you can't necessarily blame them. This game was built around a very dark and lonely apocalyptic future. And a lot of people were taking their own lives in their experiences. You can't completely blame them. And so overall, that's what made the game so valued, was that it really questioned your own stance. What would you do if this situation happened? And a lot of games didn't do that up till then. A lot of games don't do that now.
Right. Many play it safe.
Yeah, a lot of them do. So we're to treasure when a game development organization like Naughty Dog comes out with something like this, and that's why it became a TV show. Would love to go all day about it, but I think we're going to go ahead and take a break and talk a little bit more about Last of Us 2. And then a couple other games. So you guys sit tight. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
Hey guys, it's Terry here. Hope you're enjoying the content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get regular updates on new videos. Thanks. Let's get back to the show.
The Last of Us is a 2013 action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. Players control Joel, a smuggler tasked with escorting a teenage girl, Ellie, across a post-apocalyptic United States. It's played from a third-person perspective, and players use firearms and improvised weapons and also use stealth to defend against hostile humans and cannibalistic creatures infected by a mutated fungus. Before we move on to The Last of Us 2, we'll go ahead and finish up a couple topics from Last of Us 1, one of which includes the pedophile preacher. After the brothers end up disconnecting, we'll just say that, Joel and Ellie move on. Joel ends up getting hurt by one of the hunters, a group of people, as they're progressing through the game. He ends up getting hurt, and winter comes, and they hide themselves in a local anonymous town in the garage, and Joel is needing medical assistance and food. So Ellie ends up taking over as the primary caretaker and enforcer of their progression, and she goes out hunting. Upon killing a deer, comes upon a random old man and another younger gentleman who's his associate. They fight some zombies together, but ultimately the older man tries to entice Ellie into joining his legion of people in his local cult. Ellie says no, and it ends up being this whole thing where she gets hunted temporarily, also tries to get Joel his medication and succeeds, and ends up being a prisoner. without giving everything away and talking about all of the steps involved, this was a crazy moment in the game. And Brian, what are your thoughts about, we talked about all leading up to this point, all of the dynamics of the game, what's right or wrong. We didn't really talk about what it means to be in a relationship, the rules of what we experience in society, and what the government terms as being an adult, what's being allowed as consent. Those rules are thrown out of the window in this post-apocalyptic future. What are your thoughts with this random preacher that tries to subdue this young teenage girl and have her join him in his cult?
Well, not only was he a pedophile, but they were cannibals.
Yeah,
that was the other twist.
Yeah,
and it just revolves around, like, now that the world as everybody knew it was over, I think society as a collective just said all rules are gone.
Yeah.
And it was just because there was no government, there was no law enforcement. It was just whatever you want, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think what the game and the show did so well was to show kind of like whatever humanity Ellie had was gone after that moment.
Yeah.
After that part where she killed that guy who was trying to seduce her into this cult.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can't imagine that it was fun to like program something like that or to like put that in the story. But it goes along with the theme of The Last of Us taking so many dramatic turns, and it just showed just how depraved people can be when you take all of society's rules and norms away, just how people just want to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, it just, not only did Joel end up being saved because of Ellie's actions, but so that brought them closer together, but then it also removed Ellie more away from being able to trust people, especially strangers in this new world. Because you don't know what anybody's really capable of now.
Yeah.
But then imagine if there was absolutely no repercussions for doing something bad.
Yeah.
Like it really showed a very depraved world, and that I think illustrated it the most.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This moment of the game kind of illustrates how far someone would be willing to go in order to continue surviving and, being happy. They're willing to either bend the rules or just not have rules in order to maintain whatever level of quote unquote mental health would allow them, to keep going. Who cares what the victim feels?
Right.
They're looking to get what they want out of a situation by any means necessary.
And it plays into the theme of selfishness. I think everybody in the game is very selfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has a very selfish motivation.
Yeah.
Even the idea of having Ellie is like the cure of this virus. In the end, he doesn't go through with it because getting the cure means that she's dead and she can't be in his life anymore.
I think maybe some people would say that narration of people saying, hey, if we take Ellie's life and have her, whatever her blood or whatever her DNA, if they're able to make it into a vaccine, they try and make it sound like this is good for everyone, when really there could have been some level. There could have been some level of selfishness, to that good of mankind, narration as well. They're selfishly taking her life so that everybody else will be saved, but they themselves will be saved also.
Yeah.
And their children and families can be. So really, illuminating story.
But and here's something else to think about. So say it worked. Say they did kill Ellie to get a cure.
Uh-huh.
Who controls it? Who says who can get it?
Wow.
So
That's another game right there.
yeah, exactly. If you saw what would have happened if she did get cured, or if they were able to get the cure from her.
Yeah.
I mean, who's to say that they would have given away freely? Maybe they could have controlled who got it and who didn't.
Yeah.
And that's just another part of this world to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think that maybe is the bow that we will tie. Oh, you have something else? Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, and I want you to think about it for a second.
Oh my God. I told you about asking me questions on my own show.
Do you think The Last of Us is a video game, or do you think it's more of a playable cutscene?
That's a great question. I still think it's a video. Well, I guess you can argue both sides. I consider it a video game.
Because this is my point.
Okay.
I do consider it a video game, but I do see why people don't like it, because it is kind of a playable cutscene. The reason why I think their argument is so solid is because it translated so well to a TV show. Like, I remember when it was announced that they were going to adapt it, and I remember thinking like, well, I hope they just stay close to the game. But then when you look at the behind the scenes of how it was put together, like they staged it like a drama, like a play. And I think that the fact that it was already set up that way made the adaptation that much easier.
Can I insert this thought? I think some of the best video games of all time have the opportunity to translate into motion picture. Last of Us is not by itself at all. They've done that with, maybe unbeknownst, sometimes unsuccessfly.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Resident Evil, which we will talk about. They just came out with, another Super Mario movie, which, captivated the world when that originally came out for, children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they made that into, so an original idea like The Last of Us, the game was so powerful that, people were just like, we have to make a live action of this and share it with people who don't normally play video games.
Yeah.
It's that good.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do consider it a video game like you, but it was that spicy, that, it was put into a TV show, and it could be a movie at someday. Who knows?
Could be.
It definitely has the potential to, in my opinion.
But I don't see a reason to make it a movie if the TV show is already so good.
The TV show is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just, for a franchise this, that just kind of hit so many, check so many boxes in terms of good, experience, watching and playing, and, I don't put anything into a box with that. I leave it up to whatever. They could make a comic book, I guess, for all I care. I don't know.
Well, I just hope that Hollywood saw the success of The Last of Us and has finally figured out that you don't need to inject Hollywood crap into a video game adaptation.
I agree.
I'm going to get on a soapbox briefly. Video game adaptations are usually terrible. They're usually awful because Hollywood just wants to inject its own thing into it.
Yeah.
Like, let's look at the first Mario, the one that came out in the 80s.
That was embarrassing.
Awful.
Yeah.
Street Fighter, the movie.
Yeah.
Hilariously bad.
Mortal Kombat as well.
Hilariously bad. I mean, they're still entertaining, but they're terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that The Last of Us show was pretty loyal to the game.
Yeah.
I hope that writers...
You remember Max Payne?
Oh, we could do a whole episode of how disappointed I was in that movie. Don't even get me started.
Poor Mark Wahlberg.
I know. He was
Poor
like
Marky Mark.
Mocky Mock.
Yeah.
I just hope that they can see that if you take the story that's already there, people will enjoy it.
Yeah.
You don't need to change it up to check all of your Hollywoodisms.
What made the gamers enjoy it will be the same formula that makes everybody else enjoy it that don't play video games.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely.
Now, speaking of controversy,
Oh my God.
we should talk about the second Last of Us.
Yes, we should.
Probably the most controversial game to come out in the last like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
At least 10, I'd say, maybe.
Do you remember how outraged people were when The Last of Us 2 came out? Because I've been active on Twitter.
That first week.
I've been active on Twitter for quite a while, and I remember, like, I didn't get the game at first, and I remember the conversation being how violently disappointed people were in it, and then how critical they were about where they took the story.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I'll throw in a quick summary for Last of Us 2, just for people who need that refresher. Last of Us Part 2 is a 2020 action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PS4. Set 5 years after Last of Us 1, the game focuses on 2 playable characters in a post-apocalyptic United States whose lives intertwine. Ellie, who sets out in revenge for a murder, and Abby, a soldier who becomes involved in a conflict between her militia and a religious cult. The game is about Ellie and Abby, and they have, sort of back scenes of historical cutscenes of, Ellie's relationship with Joel, after in the aftermath of Last of Us 1. Mm-hmm. Again, we're going to go ahead and have our fair share of spoilers. The first being the opening scene.
Yeah.
Joel dies.
Joel gets got.
He gets
at the beginning.
He gets executed.
Pretty brutal way to die. Both Joel and his brother.
Joel's brother lives, doesn't he?
No, he also got killed. I'm pretty sure.
No.
We'll check.
He gets banged up, dude. But he lives.
Okay.
He's at a place because I have to jump. You remember you jump to the end, right? The very end. Joel's brother visits Ellie and tells Ellie, "Hey, Abby is by this island."
Okay.
And he says, "I'm not in a place where I can go get her because I'm so messed up.
Yeah.
But you need to go ahead and handle that in honor of Joel, because we finally found." So,
I mean, the game did exactly what the first one did.
Tommy.
Which was kill a main character at the beginning.
Yeah. You just didn't know it was going to be Joel.
I know.
You thought maybe it'd be Joel's brother, Tommy.
Yeah.
But they took Joel, man.
I remember being upset.
Well, I mean, you loved playing as Joel,
right,
in the first one. You loved all of his little cutscenes and all that other stuff. He still had his fair share in the second installment, but yeah, you took away the guy.
I mean, I was upset. I was shocked for sure. I did not see it coming. Was I angry? No, because I thought that it just made the narrative more compelling.
Yeah.
Because in the end, characters don't mean anything unless there's like a threat that they could leave.
Yeah.
And the fact that they killed them off so early, it kind of made you feel like, it really tugged at your heartstrings and made you really worry and care about everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you get to the section where you start to play as Abby, I remember thinking like, oh, this will be a cool little one level thing. But it's like a good third of
it's half the game.
It's like the second third of the game is playing as Abby.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is still going. And then it's still going. And I'm
it's
like,
still going.
When's Ellie going to come back? I thought maybe they were just going to end it with her, but then eventually it comes back.
Yeah.
And I remember people being really upset about it.
I don't know if upset was the word that I had when I was experiencing it. I was approaching it like a book that I really wanted to read. Mm-hmm. And I was going to reserve all of my thoughts and feelings until I heard or read the entire book first, right, and received what the message is that the director of the game wanted to send out. I understand why people were upset because, Abby you don't play her in the first game.
Right.
Why are you bringing in new
Right.
players?
Not only were they bringing in a new character, but this is a character that you hated because all you knew about Abby was that she killed Joel.
Yeah.
So I can understand why people got upset.
I get it.
Yeah.
But you do recognize the fact that people were getting upset prematurely, right? They didn't finish the game.
Yes. Which is unfortunate because I think it is a really good game.
It really is. It truly is. A lot of people were asking me like, hey, is the first one or the second one better? It's apples and oranges in my opinion. Like, obviously they're connected because one is a sequel, but they're completely different games in my opinion. All right, what's up, Gamers Enquirer family? I'm here to announce that I'm starting a podcast where I'm going to be talking about everything under the sun about gaming. We're going to have guests like streamers, fellow gamers, esports pros, devs in the industry, and maybe even you watching right now could come on board with me to talk about what we love, video games. Joel gets got in the beginning, and Abby goes on this hunt. Or I'm sorry, not Abby, but Ellie goes on this hunt to find out,
get revenge,
what the deal was, why he was killed.
But in the process, she finds out the true story of what happened in the first game.
Yes.
When she finds out who Abby is, and Abby is the daughter of the she's the daughter of the doctor.
She's the daughter of the doctor that Joel killed to save Ellie's life.
Yeah.
What a whirlwind
that was
of
a good
connection.
Twist. Yeah.
That brought their worlds together. What do you even do with that information? Like it's connection in the most indirect way.
And how would you feel if you were Ellie and you met this daughter of somebody that your friend killed?
Well, she found out and she still didn't care. She was like,
Right.
I have to do this. I have to try and kill her. This experience was eating away at Ellie's soul at night. She was having these nightmares because her father figure's killer was out there.
Yeah.
So in order to get rid of the nightmares, she had to go seek revenge. Along the way, Ellie also has this love interest.
Yeah. Can't remember her name.
No, I think I can't tell. I don't know if she was Native American or Hispanic or
But
something.
she looks like Middle Eastern.
You did?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Her pregnant pal.
Yeah,
It was a weird dynamic.
that was a weird situation.
Yeah. Because if you didn't, I guess we didn't talk about it with the first game, but if you didn't know that Ellie is gay, because that was DLC where the story of how she met her friend and they like fell in love while they were at that mall.
I never played the DLC.
Oh, okay. So
I heard about the DLC.
So when you saw that she was gay, were you just like whatever, or was it?
You know what? Based on Ellie's mannerisms in the first game and to begin with in the second game, I pretty much put that together on my own. Like she wasn't anywhere near flamboyant. I don't know. I just, that was the vibe I got.
Yeah.
I think that takes that gives homage to how good like the voice acting and cinematography was.
Yeah.
That they really captured those minor little
things.
details of what, a homosexual female, what their mannerisms are to give off that vibe. But like, I was not shocked at all once she had that first kiss. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. That's kind of confirmed what I already knew.
And, kudos to Naughty Dog for making an action game with a woman who's a gay woman.
Took courage.
And not only that, but they didn't do it in a way that was like self-congratulatory that I see a lot of people do when, they break the glass ceiling with certain types of characters, or you've never seen a hero movie with this kind of person, or you've never seen this kind of game with this kind of, like, I don't remember them ever kind of patting themselves on the back for saying like, look at us, how progressive we are. It was just a thing.
Well, a lot of games, Last of Us wasn't the first game to kind of introduce a non-traditional relationship.
Right.
You kind of saw opportunities for that in like Mass Effect.
You could be gay in that.
And other games, and they just kind of took it to, I guess, more of a realistic level with that. So yeah, they were courageous, but it's not like it wasn't done before. So
right.
Yeah, I was fine with it. So
yeah, I think it's cool that, I hate forced when it feels forced, the progressiveness of stuff, where in The Last of Us it didn't feel that way. It felt natural. It felt,
well, we talked about it earlier. The message of that game speaks to emphasizing relationships, friendships over reproduction
or cultural norms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I just like you as a person, that is the first step of being in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
If you happen to be the opposite sex, so be it. But if you don't, so be it as well. So
then they also had I think it was like a non-binary character. It was the bald person from the cult that Abby rescued.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I didn't know that.
If you didn't know,
was that like did you find out that in like some of the literature of the you get
I was
stuff
reading
to read
about it, and and I remember seeing some article praising the game for having its first like transgender non-binary character.
You really have to be into the lore of
I didn't even know
in order to pick that up, because
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up at all.
Yeah, it was the kid with the shaved head.
Yeah.
But again, they didn't make it a big deal. And that's the way in my opinion, it should be. It shouldn't be like a whole, like, look at us, look at how cool we are by how open we are with characters. I think, video games like society evolve and they should reflect where we are at now. And I think it's cool.
Yeah. So Joel gets got in the beginning of the movie, or like I'm saying movie.
Yeah.
It gets got in the beginning of the game. Ellie goes on her wild goose chase, deals with all this crap along the way. Then upon reaching where Abby is located, the second half of the game happens where you get to play as Abby and figure out her origin story. They allow you to play as her as a small child, playing with her dad, the doctor, and, running around with him and all that good stuff. So do you feel like that was too much fluff getting Abby's origin story experience in the game? Or do you appreciate that prior to Abby and Ellie having their first showdown? What were your thoughts?
I thought I liked the way that they did it. Like,
okay.
I think the second game overall is just as good, if not maybe a little bit better than the first one.
Okay.
Because I thought the gameplay was a little better. I liked that it was a longer game.
Okay.
Because the first one is pretty short. I think you can beat the first one
like 10 hours.
Yeah,
something like that.
And then the second one is like 30 to 40.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool because at first I was like really upset. I'm like, why are we still playing as Abby? But then when it's revealed that she was the daughter of the doctor, I was like, okay, now I get it. And that's like, Tarantino type storytelling where you show the ending first, or you show something first, and then you go back and you show the origins of how you got to that place.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool way to tell a story.
This is where I would be on the opposite side of the fence for you than you.
Then this is over.
Yeah, right. I think they could have microwaved Abby's story a little bit more quicker. I don't feel like I should have, been a militia member,
right?
Basically for half the game.
Yeah, it did go on for a little.
I would have, in a really well shot cutscene, could have appreciated Abby, in my opinion, just the same as I ultimately did, rather than, running around with her for 15 hours.
Right.
Maybe just 3.
It was a sizable part of the game.
It was. But, to each his own. Abby was no weak link.
She reminded me of like Ronda Rousey.
She's stronger than Ronda Rousey.
Yeah,
Ronda Rousey, I'm afraid of Abby, and I'm a bigger guy, and she frightens me. Like the way she brawls in the game is with so much conviction. How could you mess with that?
Right.
She's a soldier. She was a G, but I also respected her. She did have tenderness in the game as well. Family really meant a lot to her. Her community really meant a lot to her.
And all of her friends getting killed.
Yeah, by Ellie. If you didn't know who Ellie was, and you only experienced Abby's side, you would totally be
you'd be like, this
Ellie
woman needs to die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because Abby, she didn't really do anything wrong, From
her perspective, no.
From her perspective, she didn't. I'm saying even before she killed Joel.
Yeah.
She didn't deserve to have her dad murdered.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Her dad was just following orders and literally trying to conduct surgery on saving the world.
Yeah.
And not only was her dad removed from that equation, but obviously she lost her dad. Mm-hmm. So, witnessing that story, I appreciated. Again, I didn't want to have to, do all of the gunfighting. I would have just liked to just sit back for maybe a longer cutscene and just see all that. Mm-hmm. But anyways, so they finally have their first, I guess, interchange. And it's let's see who all the players were. It was Abby, Ellie. It was Tom was there, Joel's brother,
right?
And then we're forgetting Ellie's girlfriend's name.
Yeah.
And Ellie's girlfriend's baby's dad was there.
The baby
as well.
daddy, yeah. That was such a funny dynamic.
It was quite,
watching this
quite the family tree.
Pregnant woman just mercilessly kill all these people.
It was quite
it's
the
pretty
family
funny.
tree.
Yeah.
But eventually, it was in like this thunderstorm, and Abby snuck in to their little auditorium sanctuary where they were about to just applaud each other on killing all these people. And, Abby sneaks in, says, "Hey, you killed all my friends." They do their little fight. And eventually Abby tells Ellie she better not see Ellie ever again, or she's going to kill her. So she gives Ellie a pass because in whatever good nature that was left in her soul, she kind of understood Ellie's situation and just let her live.
Well, both Abby and Ellie are both victims of circumstance. Like, Ellie is only alive because Joel killed the doctor.
Yeah.
Abby is in her situation because Joel killed her dad.
Wow.
Like, both of them were forced to change because of things that were not in their control.
That's crazy.
I just thought about that.
It's very powerful.
That kind of unites them. And I think that's a reason why at the end, when they fight again and it's just like a brawl between the two of them, they both kind of agree to disagree and kind of walk away from it. And in the end, I think it is a happy ending because they both realize that revenge isn't going to solve their problems.
So we got to that point by so that was their first interchange was Abby saying, "Hey, I better not see you again. I'll let you live." They leave. Some time goes by. Abby ends up, being in this official relationship with her girlfriend, who, by the way, gives birth to the baby daddy's kid. So they end up having a kind of a baby together.
Yeah.
And they're living out on some farm or some, ranch in the middle of nowhere. And for at least, I guess a year, maybe two, it's peaceful. And Abby has no idea where Ellie has no idea where Abby has gone. But then Tom shows up, Joel's brother, saying, "Hey, I found out, Abby is somewhere on the West Coast. I think California
near the
or
ocean
something.
or something. Yeah,
somewhere by the Pacific Ocean." And says, "Hey, we can finish this if you want." And Ellie, after some going back and forth with her girlfriend, says, "I'm going to go."
Oh yeah, I forgot her girlfriend breaks up with her, right? Because she's going out to get revenge.
She didn't say I'm going to break up with you. She said, "I'm not going to wait for you."
Yes,
I believe.
Yes,
which I guess you can interpret. You can interpret that as breaking up, but I interpreted it as the door is still open as long as I'm not in a relationship with someone else, sort of thing. So, anyways, Ellie goes out. And in going out there, Abby and a new friend that she makes end up getting held hostage by some other random group out there on the West Coast. And by the time Ellie gets up with Abby and her friend, Abby is in a bad way. She's lost a bunch of weight. Hasn't eaten. She's very bad nutrition. And she's on the brink of death, decay. And she's kind of held up on this, I guess, sort of a crucifix. And Ellie brings her down and her friend. And there's this boat by the ocean. And they were all going to leave together, but then Abby ends up having thoughts of Joel again and was just like, Ellie ends up having thoughts of Joel again. I keep messing up their names. Ellie ends up having thoughts of Joel again by the boat as they're preparing to leave. And she says verbatim, "Abby, I can't let you go." And you could see like the way Abby kind of they weren't looking eye to eye.
Yeah.
Abby was fixing the boat, getting ready to leave, and she's just like, you can see on the back of her head, thinking like, I can't believe this chick, man. She's like, I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah.
I don't. She didn't want it. She was done. She was at a place. All of her life, she's been fighting. And all of her life, she's been bearing the weight of her dad being murdered. It's gotten her nowhere.
right.
She wants to just move on. She was able to meet a new friend, save their friend's life from their situation. She just wants to just survive and move on and not hold this thing that's this cloud that's been over her head all of her life. And here's this girl that just won't let it go.
Yeah.
In this moment. But then Ellie takes the small child that Abby's been looking out for and was like, I'm just going to murder this kid if you don't fight me. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And so reluctantly, Abby's like, all right, fine. We'll start fighting.
Yeah.
And they do this, probably one of the most iconic one-on-one fight scenes that you will ever see in the history of the gaming industry.
You feel exhausted with the characters while it's happening.
Absolutely.
You're like, when is this going to end?
It only lasts like maybe 5 minutes, but it feels like an eternity that they're just going at each other's throats and like trying to murder each other. It is
to some extent, like I would not want my children to play this game until they were at least in high school.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want them to have nightmares of, murdering somebody like that. The images of what happens during this interchange at the end of this game was crazy. Mm-hmm. They finally fight. They get to the point where Ellie has Abby drowning underwater, like literally holding her neck underwater. And she's experiencing flashbacks of Joel again, thinking of all of the things, all of the events that have happened. And just before Abby gives her last breath, she lets Abby up out of the water.
Yeah.
And I can't remember them saying anything at that point. I think Ellie just lets her go onto the boat along with her friend.
I think they say a little bit.
What do they say?
It's like
Do you remember?
something that amounts to like this. This isn't worth it anymore. Something to that effect.
Something. I don't know. Not much is said at all.
But that's pretty much how they leave it. It's just like there's nothing left to fight for at this point.
Yeah.
Because no matter what either of them does, it's not going to bring back their dead loved one.
They're not going to feel whole again.
Yeah. And that's why I say it's like a happy ending. Because in the end, they were able to reclaim this little part of humanity, which is revenge doesn't solve your problems. It doesn't bring somebody back from the dead. It doesn't make you feel any better. And that there's a great line from Avengers Endgame where Iron Man says to Captain America, like, bitterness, it's corrosive. And I think they were both just ready to let it go.
Yeah.
So
that was the message that I got.
That's the happy ending.
Just like that's as good of an ending that you're going to get in that sort of game.
So do you think, so here's the big question. Do you think that when they go to season 2 for The Last of Us, the TV show, do you think they'll adapt it just like the game, or do you think they'll maybe show a little more of Ellie and Joel together?
I think they're gonna milk this show.
Yeah, me too.
I think they've already said they're gonna milk the show and not just end it on season 2.
Well, I know the showrunner says he wants to make the second game events 2 seasons.
Okay.
So I think they will. I think they'll show, because like the game starts off and you see them in this like community. I guess that's where Tommy was. And I think they should do more with that in the show, just to kind of, because you don't want to kill Joel too early, or maybe they do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be watching.
I'll be watching for sure.
All right, we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna have our conversation on Resident Evil 4. You cool with that?
Yes.
Nice.
Hey guys, it's Terry here. Hope you're enjoying the content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get regular updates on new videos. Thanks. Let's get back to the show.
Got one other game we're going to talk about before wrapping up on the show. This one is Resident Evil 4 Remake. Oh my goodness. I've got the little summary here. This game came out obviously this year, a few months back. Resident Evil 4 is a 2023 survival horror game developed and published by Capcom. It is a remake of the 2005 game of the same name. Players control the U.S. agent Leon S. Kennedy, who must save Ashley Graham, the daughter of the United States president, from the mysterious Los Illuminados cult. The remake has an updated plot, new visuals, characters, cast, and altered gameplay, blah, 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 blah. Also, quick plug, did a review on this game a couple months ago. Be sure to check it out on the channel. It was a wild ride. I gave it a pretty high rating, but rightfully so. It was a good game. So, Brian, would you say that you're a big Resident Evil franchise head, or what's your relationship with the franchise?
So I love Resident Evil, but I think I jumped on way too late because I never played the original games. Like the original ones that came out for PlayStation, I never had one. And then I remember seeing the cover art when I was a kid and being really scared.
Right.
And at the time, my parents were like, don't watch anything scary. Don't play any scary game. So I pretty much just stayed away from it until maybe 10 years ago or so when I played the Resident Evil 1 HD remaster, which is an HD remake of the remake that came out for GameCube. And then I was hooked.
Yeah.
So I've played pretty much, I played all of the remakes that they've done. They've done 2, 3, now 4.
Yeah.
And then I've also played Village and 7, which is, I can't remember the name of that one.
Yeah. Biohazard?
I think it was, like Biohazard.
Yeah. There's a lot of reiterations of the game. Obviously, the original games, and then the remakes, and then some other, spin-offs. So, and to not, of course, mentioning, the huge movie franchise. A lot of people are into the movies. I, for one, am not. I didn't like the stories too much. But, there may be, people watching this show or listening in that, think differently. But you can't argue the fact that the franchise has made a ton of money.
It's huge.
Over the past, 20, 30 years.
It's been around since like 95 or 96.
Yeah, it's out of control.
It's almost 30 years old.
Yeah, I'll also have to admit myself, I played and beat Resident Evil 2, the original. I think it came out in 98 on the PlayStation 1. And then I just never touched it for like another maybe 10 years when finally Resident Evil 5 came out on the 360. And I mean, it was a completely different game by that point. You know, it was more of like an action RPG than more of a slower pace, I mean, the zombies were running in that one.
Yeah.
That was a big difference,
Well, 4 was kind of what I think a lot of fans would say is like the starting point of the new direction that Resident Evil went into. Because if you played the first original game, it always starts off with enter the survival horror.
Yeah.
Like they kind of created that genre of games where you don't have unlimited ammo. You don't have a lot of health. There's not a lot of health items.
Yeah.
And you really have to take your time. You can't like run in guns blazing.
Yeah.
And 4 was kind of the first time where they departed from that formula and made it more of like an action, like straight action game.
Pick up the pace.
Yeah.
Still kind of have some familiar characters and plot points, and even some of the gameplay mechanics were similar to other installments, but definitely, a faster paced game.
And what's interesting is I never played the original Resident Evil 4 either, and that was a GameCube game. Like I kind of missed out on a lot of your shining examples of GameCube games. Like I never played Pikmin. I never played Super Mario Sunshine.
Wow, those were pretty.
There were a couple ones that I just, for whatever reason, never tried or explored.
Yeah.
So the Resident Evil 4 remake is my first time playing through it.
Okay, yeah. So I'm with you too. Playing Resident Evil 4 remake, I was basically brought back to the franchise after a long hiatus. And what was your reaction playing the game? I for one was somewhat floored. I didn't play the game, and I haven't ever really played any of the games for like this robust story. I played it for basically the challenge and the fear factor. Yeah. And to be honest, the graphics, the dramatization of everything kind of put into this really fun sci-fi, scary cocktail of zombie killing.
Now, did you actually think it was scary?
So for me, yes, but I'm easy to scare.
Yeah.
I'm easy to frighten. If I'm sleeping and I have the cover partly covering, my leg, one part is exposed and another part isn't. The part that's exposed, I'm thinking some ghost is going to come in and grab that exposed part in the middle of the night.
I feel you on that.
That's literally and plus I don't really play horror games. You know, I played Dead Space. And I was scared playing that game too. But between Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 Remake, I hadn't played any horror games in like 10 or 15 years. So
wow.
I don't play them for that reason. I don't play them at night. It's just I get spooked. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So maybe for a guy like you who, you know, you watch your fair share of horror movies and, you know, television shows, this is just another one to another, you know, log to throw into that fire for you.
Right.
But what was your reaction to the game? How'd you like it?
I really liked it. I thought I've so far really enjoyed the remakes. It's all from the same game engine.
Okay.
It started with 2, and I loved this Resident Evil 2 remake. It's one of my favorite games.
Can I interject with that? I will watch and have watched the other remakes. You know, Twitch streams, YouTube, you know, videos, game clips, all that stuff. Watching someone else play, as long as I'm not the guy doing it, I think it looks awesome.
Yeah,
it looks like a ton of fun.
It is. Yeah.
So Resident Evil 4 Remake was my my attempt to take the steering wheel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's go ahead with what you're saying.
So I've enjoyed all the remakes. I think they're all really good. 4, I think it does a great job of kind of paying homage to the original game, because while I've never played the original game, I've watched a lot of speed runs. Like I'm a big speed run fan.
Okay.
Like I watch the GDQs, the Games Done Quick.
Yeah.
Charity events, and people speed run Resident Evil games there all the time. So I've definitely seen it. I think it did a good job of like paying tribute and doing a lot of like shot for shot remakes of some parts of it. There were some things that they left out, and I think because they wanted to make it a little more gritty, a little grittier, a little more realistic, and not so over the top. But that's what I like about Resident Evil, is that I think it really teeters the line of serious and silly.
Yeah.
And I think 4 does a good job of continuing that.
What platform did you play it on this time?
So, like I said, I just have a PS4, so I was really happy that the team behind Resident Evil 4 Remake decided to do a port for PS4.
Yeah, they didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to, and I was really skeptical at first, because when I think of a new game that comes out that is also for the previous generation, I usually don't think they do well, because they're often like buggy. But I for the most part, I think it performed well. There were a few like graphic glitches and like textures that wouldn't load, or sometimes when you pick up an item, like it brings you to another screen. Sometimes the item wouldn't load, so it would just be like a blank screen.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it still is I think it's still a great game.
Dude, I will say, the game was the first attempt for me to play a full-on game on PC.
Oh wow!
I'm super late to the PC, world. But playing Resident Evil 4, at top performance on a 4090 graphics card, 144 frames per second, it was buttery smooth.
Well,
it looked amazing.
I'm glad you said that, because we're probably going to have a little bit of different perspective of how the game played.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe with the Resident Evil 4 remake is the aiming system.
Okay.
I thought that especially for console, I thought that Leon's like gun sway was just too much.
Okay.
Like I felt like you had to constantly just sit there and wait for him to be able to steady his aim so that you could get like a good headshot.
Dude, it was all headshots for me.
I know, but for PC, I think it's a lot easier because you got the mouse and for the controller, the 2 sticks.
Well, I played on with controller.
Oh,
I had a controller adapter, but there's a lot of aim assists for controller players on PC. So as long as you have the cursor in the general direction, the bloom was just the area of effect for each bullet shot was seamless.
Because it really felt like sometimes I had like the reticle was definitely over that zombie's head, and for whatever reason it wouldn't connect.
Wouldn't give it to you.
And I've heard similar complaints from people saying that the aiming feels a little off.
Yeah, I've heard those too. Did you experience any other glitches or anything like that?
No, nothing like game breaking.
Okay.
It was just mostly like textures and the way certain things wouldn't load. And you could like, if you were walking up to a door that he had to like push open to go to another area, that door would look totally out of focus and like kind of crummy. But I was just happy that they had a port and that I could play it.
Yeah. Did you beat it more than once or?
No, just the one time.
Just the one time?
Yeah.
Would you be open to reattempting a campaign on the
Maybe.
game?
To me, the difficulty seemed a little artificial if you're going to have a higher difficulty and then you have to have better timing with your parries. You have to have, of course, like impeccable aiming.
Yeah.
And then you can't waste any money.
Yeah.
So maybe, but I think like if the game was a little shorter, I'd be more open to replaying it, because what I liked the most about the second remake, or Resident Evil 2 remake, was you could beat that game in like less than 2 hours. In fact, to get like an S+ ranking, you had to beat it in less than 2 hours. Yeah. It was like 2 or 2.5.
Okay.
So, replaying it over and over and having to start over, it wasn't that big of a pain in the butt, because usually you could get to a decent point where you could save and it would take maybe an hour. But with 4, it's a pretty long game. So
yeah. It wasn't a huge stress for me, especially after, playing Last of Us, like we were talking about, or Last of Us 2, which is like a 30, 40-hour game.
Right.
I just finished Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on Nintendo Switch. That was like a 50-hour game.
And you probably didn't even get close to
not
finding or doing everything.
Yeah,
right?
no, I completing that game will take months if I keep doing it.
100% it.
And yeah, it was an amazing story. But anyways, playing comparatively speaking to Resident Evil 4, it was just a breeze. I finished Resident Evil 4 in like 2 days.
Right.
So so when a big game like that comes out, it is almost guaranteed that there's going to be glitches, there's going to be server issues, there's going to be, some lag, but maybe I just got lucky. But I had no performance issues with the game.
And I've heard the PC version is like the superior one. Yeah.
Because flip a coin. Some games perform better on console and others perform better on PC. Just because you have a spec'd out PC system doesn't mean that the game release is going to behave well on PC.
And it's funny you say that, because a friend of mine just started playing Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, and she was telling me about all these bugs and I'm like, I didn't have any issues on PS4.
Okay.
So now so that's like a reverse where the PC version seems like it's a little worse.
I don't know if you've played the new Star Wars Jedi Survivor yet.
Oh yeah, you told me about this.
Oh my God.
That sounds awful.
I originally purchased it on PC just to experience a better gaming experience. It crashed on me like at least 9 times, and I was recording. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw this PC version in the trash, and I ended up purchasing the game again on Xbox. If by any small chance that Activision or EA, whoever produced the show or produced the game Jedi Survivor on PC, if you see this and you're willing to give me my money back,
nobody wants to pay for a game twice.
Yeah, it was terrible, man.
That's awful. I'm glad Resident Evil 4 didn't.
Resident Evil 4 didn't do that, dude. Yeah. And it was pretty fun from start to finish. I mean, obviously, you don't play the game for its deep storyline or anything like that. It had some cool stuff, But it was very predictable. It's a predictable story.
Right.
And everybody, and being a remake, you know what happens. But just like I said, from, you know, the graphics to the gunplay to, you know, the weapons and all that other good stuff, I thoroughly enjoyed the game.
What I like the most about it is that all the guns were cool.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there wasn't there besides like I never really used the SMG,
Okay.
but besides that, I thought they did a great job of making every gun feel different and unique.
I never used the rocket launcher in there.
Oh, you had? Well, I felt like I had to.
Yeah.
For especially like the last couple bosses.
Yeah.
Like the very last one, I feel like I just don't even want to bother without a rocket launcher.
Yeah. I just aimed a lot at the crit shots and with my M16.
It's definitely an easy way to get through some parts if you're just like, I don't even want to mess with this boss. I'll just get a rocket
just
launcher
blast
and
him. Yeah.
one hit and he's done.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of fun getting on the I don't know, it was like a motorboat jet ski thing at the end of the
boat.
game. Yeah. How'd you like that?
I thought that was super cool.
That's cool too.
And I think the game did a good job of paying tribute to all those, you know, iconic moments from the game, like the fight in the lake against can't remember the fish's name.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a fish.
Yeah, I remember
Some kind
that.
of aquatic creature.
Dude, I was scared. That scared me.
El Gigante.
Yeah,
super cool. And I love the minecart ride that you go on with. I can't remember his name.
I don't remember any of the names.
We should have probably looked this up
Yeah,
before we started.
didn't do it.
Luis.
Yeah, Luis.
Yeah.
That dude was cool.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah,
and I like
too
the way
bad.
that they remade all the characters.
Too
Like,
bad what happened.
like Ashley wasn't so much of a damsel in distress.
Yeah, she seemed to be kind of her own person. And
By the end, they seem more like a team.
yeah, for sure. Are you looking forward to another remake by the company or?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you brought that up. So Capcom through Twitter, I saw that they were looking for feedback from the fans. And when you click this link, it's asking like if you wanted us to remake another Resident Evil game, which one would you pick? And I picked two. I picked the original Resident Evil to update with this new Resident Evil engine. And then I also picked 5 because I feel like I never really played 5. And I feel like that game would really, even though it feels like recent memory, when they did the original remake, which I think was like in 2004, that was maybe like 9 years after the first one. So timing, I think it would be great.
Well, 5 is set in Africa, if I remember correctly.
Right.
If they did do a remake for that, I would just ask if they slow it down, you know, not make it like this, you know, hack and slash sort of game, and just maybe make it uniform with the other remakes that have, you know, been pushed out. That might completely change what, you know, the developers would have in mind for the game, but that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Because I appreciate the game more when it's slower paced. You enjoy the gunplay a little bit better. You can just appreciate the environment more. It feels more real when it's slower paced, personally.
And 4 was really when they switched from survival horror to action and having more ammo and more faster pace. And I agree with you. Like, what really attracted me to the series in the first place was that HD remaster of the first game, and that first game is really slow.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you said. Like, I enjoy taking in the environment and kind of being like creeped out. What I really like about the original is just how slow it is and how you can like take your time looking at all the environments, and it really like it's the atmosphere that scares me more than the zombies, because once you see a zombie, it's like they're basically just like clowns now.
Yeah.
They're just whatever. But being in a spooky mansion by yourself,
Oh my gosh.
that's like, to me, that's what makes a horror game, is the environment.
Yeah. The unknown.
Right.
The creaks in the building and, you know, the shadows.
And I think you can tell from the developers that they were trying to make Resident Evil like gearing it up to 4, because the Resident Evil 3 remake was definitely like a straight action game.
Yeah.
Whereas the Resident Evil 2 remake kind of tried hard to stick to that survival horror roots.
Well, big up to this installment. Had a lot of fun with it. I'll probably go back to it, as many of you guys will in the future. But if you haven't already, definitely play that game. It won't be a waste of your money on any console or platform. That much is for sure. All right, we'll wrap up the show with basically asking a couple questions, your thoughts on future games and stuff like that.
Hey guys, it's Terry here. Hope you're enjoying the content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get regular updates on new videos. Thanks. Let's get back to the show.
I do have to ask, what is your favorite video game of all time?
Wow.
And why, of course.
Geez, I wish I was prepared to answer this.
Yeah, I didn't.
No,
I didn't. I didn't coach him on what I'd be asking.
I think instinctually, I just want to say Ocarina of Time, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Like every time I pick it up, I feel like I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
And I played it pretty recently.
Did you?
Because I'm a babysitter, or at least I used to be a babysitter. And the kids I was playing, they had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And they were just as enchanted as I was when I was their age. And we were playing, we didn't beat it, but we were playing through it, and they were getting scared at the times when you should have been scared. They were engrossed in the story.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shows that how good of a game it is, if it's still just as good to this new generation of kids as when I played it. That to me shows that it hasn't lost its luster, and it's still a quality game.
Yeah, a great game is a great game regardless of the generation.
Right.
And that resonates with people and captivates people. I said in a previous episode that Metal Gear Solid is like my favorite game. Mm-hmm. But right there, and depending on the day of the week, I could easily switch that out for Zelda Ocarina of Time as well. I mean, from a story standpoint, Zelda Ocarina of Time, when it came out in, I believe, the fall of '98.
Yeah, around
that. On the Nintendo 64, it was like one of the first, super small sandbox open world experiences.
And that completely blew my mind.
Yeah. To be able to get on a horse and go anywhere.
Yeah.
That was never really done before. Mm-hmm. And the world was just shocked to experience that. And so it had a great lore to support it as well.
Yeah, the story is really good.
Most of the Zelda games prior to Zelda Ocarina of Time were more of a top-down visual,
right?
Side scroller. Mm-hmm. All of them were really good, but they literally made it a 3D game,
which took a long time for them.
Yeah,
because I know it got delayed a couple times back in the day.
Yeah, but what ended up coming out was out of the box, good and ready to go. And I mean, you got new games that come out now. I mean, we're talking about it that have glitches and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're like broken, almost broken, or unplayable on a computer.
You're not experiencing that with like games like Zelda.
Well, back then they didn't do like updates. Like they couldn't fall back on that.
Nor did they need to, though.
They had to put everything they had
the first time. Yeah.
And actually, now that I think about it, there are different updated versions of Ocarina of Time.
Oh, yeah?
Depending on what cartridge you have. They did patch a couple things, little things. So there are different versions of it, but it was never like you have to download the patch to make it work better.
There are minor game developers that have on different YouTube channels recreated the game.
Yeah.
On Unreal Engine, I think 5.
I watched those clips.
So beautiful. I mean, you're talking about doing a remake. Do a remake of Zelda Ocarina of Time and do it right.
People would go ballistic.
It would be
it would be out of control. Dude.
Now, I think maybe the only reason they wouldn't do it is because they would be afraid of living up to the original.
It's already a perfect game.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I call it perfect.
I would call it a perfect game.
I mean, I think the controls are kind of janky. Like if you didn't grow up in that N64 era,
perhaps
they were still trying out the 3D.
Well, the N64 controller in and of itself was just
it's a trip. It makes no sense.
a controller shaped like the letter M. Like who does that?
Well, and up to that point, Nintendo was just it didn't have a control stick. It was just up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were kind of like, "Whoa, what the heck is this?"
Yeah.
With the control stick in the middle.
Yeah.
But nowadays, kids would be like, what's this dial pad? What am I 60?
Okay, no, that's good. Before we let you go, future games that you would want to play, like to see playing, consider playing.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but I just recently picked up Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know why I never played it before. Considering I was a pretty big fan of the first one that came out for the 360 and PS3. And I was so blown away. Like I heard it was good, but I was not prepared of how much I would love it. Like I love it so much that I beat it, and then I introduced a friend to it, and she started telling me about her playthrough, and I was like, no, I just want to play it again. So I just got it, and now I'm going to play through it and be as bad as possible. Because the first time I played it, I wanted to be a good guy.
Yeah.
But I heard how crazy it gets if you're really bad. So now I want to experience that. So I'm playing through it again. So a future game that I would love is a Red Dead Redemption 3 with playing as Jack, who is John Marston's son.
Yeah.
That you see at the end of the first Red Dead Redemption game.
I think they are saying that's a possible plot for Red Dead 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can both say there is going to be a Red Dead 3.
Maybe 10 years from now.
Yeah, we just don't know when.
Because the second game took, I think, it took 10 years to make, I want to say. 10 or 8, like 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, the first one came out in 2010.
Yes.
I remember that. I was in college. And the one after that came out in 2018, the fall of 2018.
Right.
I mean, it'd be worth the wait for Red Dead 3. If it takes another 8 years, well, what is it? It's been 5 years since Red Dead 2's release. If it takes another 3 years for that to come out, I mean,
and who knows?
I'll be first in line.
They may have already been working on it because
I'm sure they have to be.
Rockstar is so big that they can have multiple teams working on multiple. In fact, I know that they were working on Red Dead 2 while they were also working on Grand Theft Auto 5.
Wow.
And speaking of Grand Theft Auto 5, I'm like super hyped for Grand Theft Auto 6 because, I mean, they had that unfortunate leak where I think it was like a programmer stole a bunch of test footage and leaked it online.
Yeah, I didn't know what to believe,
right?
But I do know what you're talking about. Is that actual game footage?
They did confirm that was a leak, that it was real, but they said obviously it's so early that they said it wasn't a fair representation of what the game will look like.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to be back in Vice City.
Yeah.
Because GTA Vice City is one of my favorite games of all time. And then I've heard that they're really expanding the map so that you're not just in Vice City, but that you can fly to, like, they're going to do like a city in like Havana in Cuba. But then I've also heard that they're also going to be able to like let you fly to Los Santos and check out that map. I don't know if that's true.
So altogether, the map is going to be at the scale of basically a real city. Like basically, there's going to be so much detail. The only thing that I really want GTA 6 to have more of is going inside of buildings and exploring inside of buildings. They focus so much on the scale of the map. It looks amazing outside, but if we can start having more gameplay in interior spaces, I would love the game even more.
Well, they put so much detail into Red Dead 2.
Yeah,
you have to imagine they're going to do the same for 6, where it's going to be you're like, my favorite thing about Red Dead 2 isn't really the main story. It's all the strangers and the random events that
The
you
exploring,
see.
yeah.
Because they put so much work into making everything unique and memorable.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
There is a rabbit hole of gameplay around every tree in Red Dead.
Yeah.
You know,
There's like 6-hour compilations on YouTube of every Easter egg in Red Dead 2.
oh really?
Yeah,
Okay.
People who go out and look for everything.
I just remember all those hours I played. Hey there, mister.
Or people are afraid of you. They're just,
Yeah.
get out of here.
Yeah. They come chase you and stuff like that.
I don't want no trouble.
Right. But yeah, GTA, they don't, you know, Rockstar doesn't even have to, if they don't want to, you know, focus on the detail of interior spaces. You know, the game's going to sell.
Yeah.
You know, last I checked on GTA 5 has sold well over $1 billion of revenue. Like they
Came out 10 years ago.
The people who developed that game, you know, just the common, you know, engineer on that team is a millionaire. You know, that's how much. I mean, people still play the game.
Yeah.
You know, to this day. You know, GTA 5 online. So GTA 6, you know, unless they really wet the bed with this game, they are going to pass the sales performance of GTA 5 by head and shoulders.
And I think they're hoping that's true, because I know they put in $1 billion into making this game.
Into the development. I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, it's their baby. You know, it's
what
Grand
made
Theft Auto.
Rockstar.
Yeah, and the franchise is one of the most, you know, iconic franchises in video game history. So I think they'll do it right. I think it'll be great. I think it'll be fantastic. I have no reason not to think optimistically, because ever since my experiences playing GTA 3 as a kid, it's always been a fun game.
And if they made it exclusive to PS5 or Xbox Series X, that would push me to buy a new system. I would buy a new system just to play the new Grand Theft Auto. I mean, I bought the PS4 to play Fallout 4.
Yeah.
So done it before.
If you do get it, if you do update your console generation product, make sure you get a TV that will support that, you know, that experience really well. It doesn't even have to be a TV. It could be like just a really good monitor as well. But get something like that, because there's no reason, in my opinion, that you would want to get a better console and not experience the gameplay to its full potential on a TV.
needs to be 4K or 8K or
4K,
12K.
4K HDMI port 2.1 that will support 120 frames per second. I'll give you recommendations offline, off the show. But anyways, Brian, it's been a pleasure having you here, man.
Yeah, thanks
Your
for having
insight
me.
has been valuable, and I think a lot of people will agree with a lot of your thoughts regarding, you know, Last of Us, you know, Resident Evil, all these games that we've talked about. And I don't know when, but we're going to have you back on the show at some point. I'm confident of it. I'm hoping for it. And you and I will continue to have our offline conversations about video games, movies, TV, all that good stuff, man. So thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Sweet. All right, we'll close here, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Join the Discord, all that stuff that everybody says. Do that.
Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button.
That's right. And we'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.
All right, guys, thank you for joining me in this podcast. If you want to come on board with me in this podcast, join our Discord community where we talk about everything gaming. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and follow my socials in the links below to be notified when the next episode uploads. We'll catch you in the next one.